This video is going to explain the basics of how a congressional debate speech is structured. So the first thing to know is that there are two sides in a congressional debate. The first is the pro side. They start off the debate. Pro speakers are in favor of the legislation that's being debated. The debate begins with one of two types of speeches, either an authorship speech or a sponsorship speech. An authorship speech is given by a member of a school who wrote the legislation, which is why it's important for a school to submit legislation, because only schools that submit legislation have the opportunity to give an authorship speech. The other type of a speech is a sponsorship speech. It's also the first speech given in a round if an authorship speech is not present, and it's given by any member of a school that did not write the legislation. The other side of the debate is con. People on this side are going to be opposing the piece of legislation being debated. So pro and con speeches are a maximum of 3 minutes, and we'll break that down for you in just a couple of minutes. Following a pro or a con speech is going to be a questioning period. 2 minutes following the first pro and the first con speech, 1 minute following all other speeches. Getting into the first part of the speech is the introduction and signpost. Introduction should get the attention of those listening to the speech, and also should be a maximum of 10 to 15 seconds. This is probably one of the more difficult things for congressional debaters to learn how to do, is to get an attention of a listener in 10 to 15 seconds. A lot of people in Congress, their introductions are longer than this, and it tends to get into the arguments, but 10 to 15 seconds is what we're looking for. A signpost is going to tell you the two arguments that are going to be presented in the speech. Each argument should be stated in a tagline format, and that means 7 to 9 words maximum. You're not looking for long, complete sentences. You need to indicate the essence of the argument in 7 to 9 words. Labels are not arguments. So to say economy, unemployment, those are labels. Those are not arguments. The introduction and signpost should be completed in less than 30 seconds. While the introduction and the signpost are important, the arguments are much more important. And if you make your introduction and signpost longer than 30 seconds, it tends to take away from one of the other parts of the speech that we're going to talk about. So the second part of the speech is the first argument, and this is going to be 60 seconds. And while some people use 3 arguments, we do not. We use 2 arguments and 2 arguments only. 3 arguments provides very shallow development of issues and analysis. If you have 2 arguments, you can go deeper on an argument. And this showcases good evidence and provides you a greater forum for your analysis. The best arguments are going to have both evidence and analysis to prove the point. Evidence is not going to be read word for word from the source. And this is a basic difference between Congress and other forms of debate where you do directly quote from a source. This is going to be giving us the most important part of the evidence. When you're citing evidence, you need to have at least 2 of the following 3 things when you're citing it. Either the name of the person, and hopefully they're a qualified person, the name of the publication, and the full date, not just 2020, but the full date. Analysis is when you tell the judge what the evidence means in relation to your argument. So this is not going to be an exercise of just putting out several pieces of evidence and not telling the judge what it means. You have to give them context as to what this means in terms of proving the argument that you're trying to make. You should have at least two pieces of evidence per argument. And while it's not a contest to see who can put the most evidence in there, you certainly should have more than one piece of evidence per argument. So two is a good number to start with. Three, if you can fit it in comfortably. The next part of the speech is argument number two, and quite simply, it's exactly the same as argument number one in terms of its qualifications. The next part and the last part is the summary conclusion. This is going to be lasting 30 seconds. You're going to be reviewing the main parts of argument number one and argument number two, and referring to the introduction when possible. Uh, Otherwise, you can create a conclusion that allows you to exit the speech. Here are some examples of things not to use for conclusions. Please don't just say thank you, thus we affirm, thus we negate. I hope you vote pro. I hope you vote negative. None of those are appropriate conclusions. We have to find a better way to end the speech than that. So basically, the philosophy of our Congress speeches goes along an established speech axiom. Tell them what you're going to tell them, which is what the introduction and signpost is. Tell them, which is what argument one and argument two are, and then tell them what you told them, which is summary and conclusion. It would be nice to sit there and think that all that you have to do is say something once and the judge gets it. But the reality of the fact is that it usually takes more than once to tell a judge something before they truly understand and appreciate what it is that you've said. So, in review, basically, the parts of a speech go like this. Your introduction and signpost are 30 seconds. Argument number one is 60 seconds. So that means it's completed by a minute and 30 seconds into the speech. Argument number two is 60 seconds, and that should be completed by 2:30 into the speech. And the summary and conclusion is 30 seconds, and that means that it should be completed by the 3-minute point. One final note. When the 3-minute signal is given, finish the sentence that you're on and stop. While there are grace periods, when everybody in the room is using 3 minutes and 10 seconds consistently, it takes away from your ability to get additional speeches in there. Plus, judges don't like it when you go to 3 minutes and 10 seconds on a consistent basis. 302, 303, whatever it takes to finish a sentence is okay. You should practice your speech enough to be able to get it completed in 3 minutes. This is the basics of what a congressional speech looks like.